We're going to talk about how difficult things have been at the minute and how stressful the hobby actually is for me a lot of the time. And it's difficult to open up to you about this, but here we go. I suppose I shall always give it my best shot, boys and girls. This is difficult. Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Iron Horse Railways. I am as always Craig, and it's wonderful to see you all here with me today. Now, this video is not going to be a spectacle of wonder and amazement. This is just going to be me blabbing on about updates and the stress of daily life that we all do feel every day, constant, crushing. The obligations of the day-to-day which just muddle things up, and the stress and the worry of trying to think of content to make every week, despite the fact I don't have any time at all to do the content thing and to build the railway and to review the products and all the rest of it, because I don't want to let you boys and girls down at the other side of the camera. The obligation, the endless obligation. And I know people always say, don't feel like you have to make a video, Craig. Don't feel like you have to do the content. But to be honest with you, you kind of do, because you work hard to build up your audience, to build up the friendships, the connections, the business connections. And if you don't keep up with the weekly time slot of your content, then it will eventually get lost. Now, I know recently Tom over at Buggles Kelly Station has put forward some thoughts in a similar sort of vein. And I myself, last year actually, had a big issue with burnout and had to take a step back for a couple of months. And then I slowly eased myself back into it, and then ended up again just doing full-time content, one video a week, as well as full-time job, being a parent and looking after family members and everything else that comes along with those download contentable packs of life, shall we say. And I don't know if I can keep continuing to do things in a meaningful way at this rate, because as always in life, things change. Our needs and our wants change. And if you said to me 10 years ago what I want now versus what I want then, wouldn't have believed you. So my motorcycle got stolen a few weeks, months ago, as a lot of the regular viewers out there are very much aware. So with the theft of the motorcycle and all the other stresses of life, I've taken the decision to actually not get a motorcycle again, which I know isn't really model railway related, but it is me related. And this video is purely intended for the long-term viewers and friends of the channel. Certainly not intended to gain a new audience or anything like that. It's just me being honest with the people that have put me where I am. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that you're gonna want to give up biking, I'd have called you a crazy nutcase and told you to leave me alone. But things change. My employment has changed. I now have a fantastic job working in an industry which I love, with people that are genuinely fantastic to work with. And of course, I've now got more time at home with my family. And as daft as this might sound, because I've been able to spend more time with them, it turns out that I actually quite like them, funnily enough, and I want to spend more time with them, which I can't really do if every spare moment I have away from the day job is spent thinking of content, writing scripts, taking B-roll, filming and editing a video. And I know a lot of other content creators out there lucky enough to have maybe a spouse or a friend or even a team to help them create content. I know Loris Mechanical Marvels creates content on his own, but also has a team that help out. Jenny Kirk, she has Zoe, who does all the editing for her. But Charlie at Chadwick Muller Railway seems to be a bit like myself, where he films and edits his own videos on his own, and he isn't doing weekly content. I think Charlie's now on a bi-weekly. That dog's barking. I think Charlie's on now bi-weekly videos, maybe even 3 weekly. I don't know. So I'm thinking that I am going to start doing that. So there's going to be a week. It might not be next week, it might be the week after, where I don't upload any content. That's going to set the barrier, if that makes any sort of sense. What this will do is it means I will have more time to make meaningful content rather than just hastily hashing together a video which isn't really up to my standards and doesn't really do it for you guys either. And you do deserve better. So that is what I'm going to do. Taking the decision to stop with the weekly content and instead roll out a bi-weekly content release schedule. I realise that this is going to be disappointing to some of you, and there's probably a lot of it there going, hate stuff. That's fine, you carry on, kid. I hope it makes you happy. At least someone is. Anyway, look. So what I'll do for the rest of this video is I'm going to show you what very little updates I have for the exhibition layout come stopgap layout that I've been building. There's not a huge deal of updates gone into that, but what has gone into it I will happily show you. So yeah, there we are, guys. Let's have a look, shall we? Yes, that's right. It's time for the sponsors advert. Yes, of course, it is Sawyer Models of Lee. Why go anywhere else when you can get everything you need right here? They have rolling stock, accessories, scenic items, tools, whatever it is you need to build a banging model railway, they can absolutely supply it. And I should know because I've been going to them for quite a while now, and I've got everything I've needed from them. You can either buy from them from their website, or you can go in store for superb customer service. Remember guys, visiting Sawyer Models really does help me out, so if you can, please do so, and do your part to keep helping support small, local, independent model railway stores. We need them now more than ever. So as promised, this is the exhibition layout slash home layout slash I can't build a full layout around the room yet because the landlord might kick us out because of the renters bill coming in soon, so this is what I have with me. But I've made it so I can take it with me. So you will notice down the middle there is a slit where the two baseboards are joined. That's good. Now what I've done is I've carefully cut with and Dremel down the middle, so these tracks will separate and move apart, and everything is held in place just finely. Wagons, locomotives and brake vans all go over nice and good, which is what we like to see. So that bit works of it. How have I connected it together? Well, if you look down here, you will see we have a couple of coach bolts with winglets on them. There's two on that side and one there, three, and that works perfectly fine. Clamp the bolts together. I've also used my alignment dowels from DCC Concepts. That helps keep things lined up so that when you do make the holes to join the baseboard together permanently and clamp it down, that it stays pretty much where it needs to, which for having a model railway that works is pretty important. So there we are, that's good. Now this part of the layout is going to be a servicing, fueling segment, if you will, area. This back line here will be the fiddler yard, which will be used at exhibitions and prior to setting up running sessions and what have you. And that's indicated by the fact there's a building here, so there'll be a wall or something, so you won't be able to see that back line, and there'll be the obligatory tunnel mouth here, or so is the plan anyway. But this is the fuel area. I'm not sure about keeping the Scenecraft steam shed. I quite like it. It's pretty nifty. It does a job. There is a diesel sat in it, but I'm thinking it's a heritage railway and their mainstay is steam. But on the other side of it, they would put pretty much whatever they wanted in that if they had to. So there we are. Also, the placeholder for a diesel fueling point, that's not staying like that. I want a 3D printed solution, so if any of you boys and girls out there have got any ideas for a good 3D printed diesel fueling point, it can be modern image, it can be an older one, whatever, do let me know. They're all good for heritage railways. Now the track as well, the bullhead track, is on our 3mm DCC Concept Legacy track underlay. I think it's got a really nice little height to it, and it gives a wonderful shoulder. So we're going to get that ballasted eventually. And stuck on the end of that, we've got the Pico bullhead buffer stops, and they clip on the rails as well. So they actually work really nicely. You won't see the wiring when it's all done. This side is going to be the wagon repair depot. Now, I've got a few little bits and pieces, just placeholders I'm just trying to figure out the lay of the land at the minute. That engine shed won't be used. I want a modern image segmented factory, you know, with the things, I can't remember what they're called now, would be good. We'll have one main lane there, we'll have an arrivals and a ready for departure lane, I've got decided which is, this is the head shunt to get into the fuel depot there, and then we've got a couple of the porta cabins and what have you there. So yeah, if you've got any ideas, boys and girls, about how best to lay this out, then do let me know. I've looked at a few small wagon repair depots, and the idea behind this is I can run pretty much whatever I want within reason, but it's also realistic because a lot of heritage railways have a secondary business doing painting services for the mainline operators and blah 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 blah. This is a similar sort of thing, so you're going to see all sorts on that. Back over at the fueling area, I reckon this bit between the tracks needs to be rail height and not down or a shoulder. If you look at many depots, there isn't really a shoulder in the depot, so well there is, but it's usually the edge, not the interim, the middle part there. So I'm going to fill this in with some of the proper track underlay that we've got over here. Here we are, big ass piece of floppy track underlay. Easiest way to do it is just to place it down, thus roughly feel where it is, and then cut just like halfway, and then you can remove the track bed underneath it, and then this piece will slot in nicely. I'll try and get a camera set up and show you what I mean. Now what you can do before you put this stuff down is first and foremost sort of like mark up where you want it to go in your head, if that makes sort of sense, and then you can get a little bit of PVA, just put a little bit of PVA down and then stick it down. Now obviously it will stick down if you let it dry, but we're not really bothered about letting it dry just yet. But what it will do is it stops the foam from moving around the place. It lets us get a good even cut. So there we are. I think that should be actually about right, because I don't want it to go right to the end, and I don't think it needs to come this far ahead here, so that's big enough for about 2 locos. These are fueling point in the middle there. Cool, okay, let's get this glued down, and I think we could actually stand to cut a little bit off this before we even begin, so we're not wasting, or so it's not as complicated and in the way, flapping in the way. So sharp knife time, boys and girls. First, just a rough cut. We'll get that there, and I reckon we can cut it about there. That'll do just fine. Okay, save that for later. Okay, that's a much nicer piece to work with, so we'll get some PVA on here next. Okay, so a good bit of neat PVA, proper stuff, not the cheap stuff from like a pound shop or whatever. That's too watery. You want that guff there, and on the back of the sheet, give it a good covering. Now we don't need to go right to the edges in this instance because we are going to be trimming this down, but when we do glue the final piece down, we will need to go right to the edges. But for the time being, this is just going to help us keep this piece of foam still whilst we do the cutting we require. Pop your glue and your brush to one side, as is the custom in my culture. There we are. Flip it on over, and we're going to put it about there. And then we just push down, let it sit. Move it around a bit, let it get a bit of grip. Now you've got 2 options here. You can either put a little bit of weight on it and leave it for like 20 minutes, half an hour, just to tack off. You'll still be able to lift it up and move it away, but it just means, I mean, you can see there, look, already it's starting to hammer down. So we're going to put a bit of weight on this for now, come back to it in about 10-15 minutes or so, cut around, and then you'll see what I mean. Locomotive weights. So this has been on for about 10 minutes now. I'm going to move the locos to one side. I mean, you could probably use something better. Now the glue underneath this will not be dry fully. If I pull this up, it will come off. That's fine. That's part of the design, if you will. But what I want to do is just cut carefully. And I'm just going to cut, if I can get the angle in here. And you notice where the piece underneath, you can just see that. So you can see where I'm going to start. You've got this piece of track bed underneath, which has been there all before, and that's already stuck down. Good. This is the new piece over the top. We're going to cut over it like that and all the way down. And then we can remove the piece underneath it, and the new piece can go on top and all slot together. Sounds a bit more complicated than it actually is. Okay, so we'll start with the underside bit first. Okay, so now that's done, you lift all the excess pieces away we don't need them. Lift up your main piece, and because we cut through this down to these pieces underneath, we can lift these away. Because the piece we had on top was pretty much cut in shape of this, we can just lay it over and it should all just slot in. There you go. You can pretty much, and just because it's foam, you can just work it in the sides there, and then we can glue that down. Okay, there we are, and that is all just drying now. Yes, you can see the seams and the joins, but don't forget this is going to get painted and ballasted over and top coated and what have you, but that is all nice and inlaid. So when we put the fuel stuff on here now, it's all like at the proper level and stuff and everything else. So that's cool beans. Okay, we're going to wipe this down and make sure it stays in place, and then we can start doing scenery next time. Awesome. Well, there we have it, boys and girls and all points in between. That's the updates. Stick with me, because this is not a cancellation. This is not me having a big, this is not an airport. I don't need to announce my departure. I'm not a Boeing 747 or anything like that. This is just me letting you know that I am going to go to a bi-weekly content drop. I'd rather make one video every 2 weeks that's a lot better and has more time to be thought about, rather than trying to rush together a video every week when I just don't have the time to put into it and spend one of my days off. So days where I'm not at work aren't necessarily days where I'm actually off. There's always something to be done. But it'd be nice not to have to spend all that time thinking of filming, editing, creating a video, which just isn't up to standard. So there we are, guys. Do subscribe if you are watching this still, please. I would really appreciate it. I want to get to 4,000 subscribers. That's the next milestone for the channel. We are continuing to grow and the content is coming thick and fast. I know I don't do too many rants anymore, but there's not really much to rant about anymore, really. Life is good, usually, and model railways are good. I just need to get myself motivated again and feel like it's worth creating content for me, rather than just creating content for views and clicks, which a lot of channels out there do. And I'm not going to mention names. You can connect the dots yourself. You can tell who they are. We've done this before. I'm not going to say a model's crap when it isn't. And I'm not going to say a model's good when it isn't. As always, I'll be honest with you. And I thank you for your continued support and viewership. Now, as always, I am off to go have a lie down, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.